Seoul woke slowly, steam from street carts coiling into the pale morning, scooters whispering past convenience stores, the Han River unfurling light like brushed steel. Cassidy James tucked her curls into a hoodie, clipped a roll of compostable poop bags to her belt, and adjusted the worn leather leash looped around her wrist. 3 down, she muttered, stretching the ache out of her lower back. 1 to go. Her client app pinged. New booking. Priority. No photo, no dog bio. Just an address in Cheongdam-dong, an access QR code, and a single note. Be careful. He's picky. Cassidy huffed a laugh, thumb hovering over accept. Aren't they all? She accepted. The fare was ridiculous for a 1-hour walk, the kind of number that whispered penthouse and problems. The tower's lobby looked like a museum learned how to hold its breath. Stone cool underfoot, an art installation spiraling up to a skylight, a water wall muttering in the corner. The security guard glanced at her shoes first, scuffed, then her face, frowned, then the QR on her phone. Miss James, he asked, surprised at his own English. Korean's fine, Cassidy replied in careful, fluent syllables, and watched his shoulders lower a fraction. I have a scheduled walk, Unit PH1B. He scanned the code. The elevator gates slid open with a soft sigh. Dog is famous here, he added, almost apologetic. Shiba, temper. I've seen worse, Cassidy said, smiling. I once walked a corgi that bit the wind. He blinked, then almost smiled. The elevator accepted her phone like a passport and lifted her in silence through panes of glass and sky. Inside the penthouse, minimalist perfection, glass and walnut, no clutter, soft jazz curling out of nowhere. Cassidy set her tote by the door and slipped into the disposable shoe covers from the umbrella stand. No framed photos. 1 plant. Too healthy, which meant a service watered it. Windows draped a view of Seoul like a living postcard. Borie, she called softly. Boria? The Shiba Inu sat on a velvet dog bed with the judicial stillness of a magistrate. Fox face, sharp eyes, coat burnished like toasted sugar. He looked at her the way some people look at an unfamiliar piece of art, suspiciously, like it might demand something. Anyong grumpy, Cassidy murmured, kneeling sideways so she wouldn't loom. She let him sniff her open palm, wrist turned, no sudden moves. I'm Cassidy. I come in peace and treats. Borie inhaled. Suspicion flickered. He touched his nose to her fingertips, then nudged, 1 firm, decisive press like a stamp of provisional approval. Cassidy smiled before she could stop herself. Oh, so we're friends now? Don't tell me you're easy. She clipped the leash to his harness. He accepted it without a huff, tail making 1 understated arc. In the hallway mirror, Cassidy caught her own reflection. Tired eyes, hoodie, the hint of a grin she hadn't worn all week. She lost it quickly, tucked it away, and headed down. They walked under ginkgo trees, probably older than both of them. Borie choosing the curb's precise edge, regal, calibrating distances like math. Traffic hummed. A kid pointed, Shiba, and Borie ignored him with the dignity of a small prince. Cassidy let him set the pace, checking corners before he did, keeping the leash loose but certain. When thunder rumbled far away like a truck on a bridge, his ears twitched. She spoke before the flinch could bloom. You're okay. I hear it too. He glanced up, quick, measuring, and continued. By the 30-minute mark, he'd pressed his shoulder to her shin once, as if to say, noted. By the 50-minute mark, he tolerated her humming off-key to an old neo-soul playlist only she could hear. Back at the tower, the elevator delivered them to air perfumed faintly with bergamot. Cassidy towel-dried Borie's paws on the mat, massaging each pad the way anxious dogs preferred. He sighed, audibly, royalty deigning to accept service. "Sir, yes, sir," she said, deadpan, and he blinked as if almost amused. The door unlocked before she could ring. He filled the doorway with cool quiet. Seungjae Yoon wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled once, no tie. The line of his jaw looked like it had been sketched with a ruler. He took in Cassidy, the hoodie, the dog hair on her leggings, the shoe covers, and then the dog at her side. "Who are you?" he asked. His Korean was gentle in sound, harsh in temperature. Cassidy straightened, leash still looped around her palm. "Wow, hi to you too. You are not the walker I hired." His gaze cut to the hallway camera, then back. "How did you get my access code?" "The client app sent it." She lifted her phone. "No photo, no notes. Just be careful. He's picky. That could have been about you for all I knew." He blinked once, the micro-expression of a man who isn't used to being interrupted. "You had no right to take my dog," he said softly, which somehow sounded more dangerous than if he'd raised his voice. "And you had no right to leave a key to your life lying around without basic details," Cassidy replied, equally soft. "Maybe fix your system before accusing the help." At help, something at the corner of his mouth tightened, then smoothed. Borie patted forward and sat squarely beside Cassidy's ankle, tail thumping twice. Seungjae's eyes dropped to the dog as if betrayed. "Borie!" Borie pretended not to hear. Cassidy didn't smile, not with her mouth. It flickered somewhere in her chest and stayed there. "Are we done?" she said, breezy. "Because my shift ends in 10 minutes and I promised my tutor I'd review irregular verbs." "You're a student?" He sounded almost surprised the way rich men do when someone's life contains more than one job. "I'm a person," Cassidy said, "who walks dogs. Today, I walked yours." He still has all his limbs. 5 stars. A muscle in his cheek ticked. "What is your name?" "Cassidy James." She clipped the leash off, smoothed Borie's harness, and rose. "You can complain through the app, or you can leave a tip." She winked without warmth. "Up to you." She turned to go. It was not, she knew, how people spoke to men like him. She also knew she would not be able to sleep if she swallowed the words just to keep a client who had made "hello" sound like a subpoena. "Ms. James," he said, and she paused with her hand on the doorframe. "Do not come back without clearance." "I wasn't planning to," she said, and left. Seungjae watched the door close. It clicked like a verdict. Borie stared up at him, reading weather. "You," he said to the dog, in the tone of a CEO faced with an expenses report that had learned to breathe, "are impressionable." Borie yawned. Work waited. Emails stacked like dominoes. A board memo flagged urgent. A preliminary note from legal about an ongoing audit. He ignored them, shook kibble into a porcelain bowl, and set it down with the same care he used on quarterly earnings. Borie sniffed, looked at the bowl, looked at Seungjae, then sat. Seungjae frowned. "Eat." Borie lifted one neat paw and set it on the floor with operatic sadness. He added boiled chicken, a whisper of pumpkin, the vet-approved topper he'd ordered in a subscription that cost more than most rent. "Eat," he said again, patient thinning to a filament. Borie stood, approached, sniffed, then turned his head away as if the bowl had offended his ancestors. "Borie," Seungjae said, low. The name sounded like a threat and a plea stacked together. The dog's tail made one slow tick-tock. He walked to the entryway, sniffed Cassidy's empty shoe covers in the bin, and returned to flop beside the untouched food like a martyr. Seungjae exhaled through his nose, a soft, incredulous laugh without humor. He picked up his phone and hit speed dial. "Hyun," he said, when his assistant answered. "Why was there an unknown walker in my home?" On the other end, panic in stereo. "Sir, schedule. There was a mix-up on the app. I'm so sorry. I'll fix it by ensuring it never happens again. Yes, sir. He hung up. Borie watched him with the unsparing gaze of a small, furry auditor. Fine, Seungjae said. We are not negotiating with dogs. He slid the bowl closer. Borie turned his head away again, dramatically, and placed one paw on the leg of the coffee table as if swearing an oath. A minute passed, then 5, then 20, while Seungjae tried to read the memo he'd already read twice without seeing it, the words dissolving into weather reports. In the window, the city kept glittering. On the floor, the dog kept not eating. He checked the time. The memory of Cassidy kneeling, calm voice, sure hands, knife through his annoyance, and lodged like a small, uninvited truth. Borie trusted her. It irritated him. It also interested him. He opened the app. Walker, Cassidy J. Today's route? Completed. Notes? Likes the curb edge. Sensitive to distant rumbles. Tolerates harness adjustment if you start with the right paw. Photo. Borie, mid-sigh, patient while she wiped his paws. His thumb hovered over report issue and drifted, traitorous to tip. He set the phone down as if it had burned him. Borie stood, padded to the bowl, sniffed, then glanced pointedly at the door. You have got to be kidding me, Seungjae said. The dog sat. The food cooled. The city dimmed a shade toward evening. Cassidy reached her studio in Mapo, a slice of room with a bed pressed under a window and a kitchen that was generous enough to call itself a counter. She peeled off her hoodie, wrung rain from its hem even though the day had been clear. Seoul humidity got inside clothes and feelings, and put the kettle on. In Cheongdam, Seungjae stood at the window with his tie loose and his certainty looser. The bowl on the floor remained a still life of refusal. Borie lay beside it, every inch a protest poem. You win, Seungjae said finally, voice dry. Once? He texted Hyun a single line. Bring her back. Borie lifted his head, ears pricking toward the door, as if he could hear a promise form on the other side of it. The city lights blinked. The jazz on loop kept pretending not to be lonely, and Borie did not take one single bite. Cassidy's phone chimed. Private message. Client PH1B. She braced for profanity disguised as courtesy. Instead, Assistant Hyun, Ms. James, apologies for the scheduling error. Could you return tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock? Mr. Yoon requests the same walker as today. Additional note, the dog is refusing food. Vet says he may be waiting for someone. Cassidy stared at the screen until the kettle clicked off. A smile tried to trespass on her mouth. She didn't let it. Instead, she texted back, Cassidy, confirm 7 o'clock. Fee same as today plus food coaxing surcharge. P.S. Start with the right paw. A 3-dot typing bubble appeared, then vanished. Then, Assistant Hyun, confirmed. Cassidy set her phone down. Outside, the city sighed and folded itself into night. Inside, she pressed her palm to her chest until her heartbeat steadied. She wasn't sentimental. She couldn't afford to be. She was here to save money, finish her certification, pay off the mistakes of a life built fast and braked hard. Still, in the quiet, she let herself whisper it. See you tomorrow, Grumpy. The morning air in Seoul was cooler than the day before. Light wind skating off the Han River, rustling the trees like a sigh. Cassidy James yanked on her sneakers and muttered to no one, You better not be one of those dogs that wakes up with an attitude. She glanced at the screen. PH1B, confirmed. As the elevator ascended, she pulled out a compact mirror and checked under her eyes. No sleep, no makeup. Hoodie, unintentional fashion statement. She shrugged. Whatever. The dog likes me. The penthouse door opened on the first knock. Borie sprinted toward her. Not walked. Sprint. Hi to you too, Cassidy laughed as he trotted in excited circles, then sat proudly, waiting to be leashed. Behind him, Seungjae stood in a dark navy shirt, sleeves crisp, collar sharp, expression unreadable. His eyes lingered on Cassidy's messy bun, then dropped to the leash. "I trust the directions were clear," he said. "I followed them to the letter. Even took the express train to your majestic doorstep. I meant the leash protocol." Cassidy clipped the leash with one hand. "Right paw first. I was the one who discovered that, remember?" Borie woofed softly as if in agreement. Cassidy stood and met Seungjae's stare, chin slightly raised. "Anything else before we do our sacred laps around Gangnam?" He exhaled slowly, stepped aside. "Walk him. Return in 55 minutes. Cassidy saluted. Aye, CEO." 45 minutes later, they were back. Borie's tail wagged at Cassidy's pace. She handed off the leash like a relay baton, crouched to unbuckle the harness, and gave Borie a soft pat between the ears. "You good, baby?" The dog leaned into her hand. Seungjae's frown deepened. "I don't believe in bribing animals for affection," he muttered. "I don't either," Cassidy replied, rising. "That's why I use charm." A moment passed, just enough for the silence to stretch uncomfortably. Then, "I'm offering you a contract." Cassidy blinked. "Sorry." "To be Borie's full-time walker. Structured hours, daily service, salary included." She crossed her arms. "You mean I'm not just a mistake you tolerated out of desperation?" His jaw ticked. "The dog is complicated." "You seem to understand him." "Ah, so now I'm a dog empath. Is this a promotion or a trap?" Seungjae's tone stayed calm, almost too calm. "We require consistency. My schedule fluctuates. My mother expects—" Cassidy raised an eyebrow. "Your mother?" He looked away. "She interferes with things." "Wow, rich, cold, and family issues. You're practically a K-drama." His eyes flicked back to her, unreadable. She softened, only slightly. "What are the terms?" 15 minutes later. They sat across the kitchen island, a tablet between them. Digital contract, salary, generous, hours, early mornings, occasional evenings, perks, car service, pet insurance coverage, bonus after 90 days. "You're serious about this?" "I don't joke with employment," he replied. Cassidy leaned back in the chair. "Then here's my counteroffer." He blinked. "Excuse me?" She raised one finger. "One, no condescension. I'm not the help. I'm a person. You talk to me like a human being, or this doesn't work." "Noted." "Two, I choose the walking route." He frowned. "Why?" "Because if I have to walk past bored luxury doormen and fake smiling ajumas every day, I'll throw myself into the river." "Fair." "And three, Borie gets a say. He doesn't like it. I'm out." As if on cue, Borie barked once. Cassidy smiled. "See? The prince has spoken." Seungjae studied her for a long beat. "You're difficult. I'm affordable. There's a difference." He pulled the tablet toward him. "Signed." She signed second. Borie jumped onto his dog bed with a satisfied flop. The boardroom, Yoon Group HQ, cool lighting, long conference table, suits arranged in tight-lipped expectation. Seungjae sat at the head, eyes on the quarterly report. "Numbers are slipping," said Mr. Min, one of the elder board members. "I'm aware." "You've been distracted," murmured another. "There's talk among investors about your personal choices." Seungjae's eyes remained unreadable, such as, "You're single, uninvolved, aloof, a relationship, just for optics, would project stability." He resisted the urge to laugh. "You want me to date for the stock price?" No one said date, appear attached, the image of warmth. His mother's voice echoed as she entered the glass-walled boardroom without knocking. You don't think I've tried to tell him that? Chairs shifted. Seungjae didn't move. Mother, you need a partner who makes sense. Someone who fits. I already have someone in mind, he said coolly, surprising himself. Her eyebrows arched. Who? He stood. You'll see. Later that evening, the penthouse. Seungjae prepped Borie's dinner. Same kibble, same toppers, plated with clinical precision. Let's try this again. He set the bowl down. Borie sniffed, looked up, then, dramatically, lay down beside it like a tragic widow. Seungjae pinched the bridge of his nose. You're testing me. The dog closed his eyes. Cassidy's phone buzzed. Text from Assistant Yoon. Emergency. Borie refuses to eat unless you're present. Mr. Yoon requests you return early tomorrow to observe feeding. Cassidy, tell Mr. Yoon I charge extra for meal supervision. Hyun, approved. Double pay for tomorrow. Cassidy stared at the screen. Well, grumpy, she muttered to herself. Looks like we're in this for real. She glanced at the hoodie she'd peeled off that morning, tossed it in the laundry, and for the first time in weeks, she fell asleep with her phone clutched in her hand, not from anxiety, but from something dangerously close to curiosity. At the penthouse, Seungjae leaned against the counter in a crisp t-shirt, watching Borie lie next to an untouched dinner plate. He picked up the untouched bowl, added hand-fed chunks of salmon. Borie sniffed, then turned his head and sneezed. The CEO let out a long breath and muttered to no one, Fine, I'll bring her back. From his coat pocket, he retrieved the signed contract. Folded, official, irrevocable. She better be worth it, he said aloud. Behind him, Borie wagged his tail once, as if he knew. 3 weeks later, the forecast said clear skies. Seoul, of course, had other plans. By the time Cassidy clipped Borie's leash onto his harness that evening, the clouds over Gangnam had thickened, rumbling low like they were debating whether to throw a tantrum. Cassidy glanced up. You and me both, she muttered. Borie tilted his head, reading her like he always did, like she was a map with just one road he trusted. Earlier that day, Cassidy had stood behind a frosted glass divider inside a local pharmacy, carefully counting bills to pay for new allergy meds. The cashier hadn't spoken a word until it was time to hand her the change, and even then, avoided looking her in the eyes. Cassidy had smiled anyway, polite, fluent, inoffensive, blending in, like always. She'd walked out slowly, the weight of invisibility clinging like humidity. It wasn't just the stares, it was the pauses, the unspoken, "What are you doing here?" Behind every suspicious look, the people who slowed their speech like she was too foreign to understand, then got flustered when she answered perfectly. Cassidy used to speak up, push back, but Seoul didn't listen when you were tired. Now she smiled. Now she blended. Now she walked dogs. It was simpler to be needed in silence. And Borie, he didn't ask her to shrink. He just walked beside her. But tonight, as they turned the corner past a row of hedges, the sky cracked open with a sudden growl of thunder so loud, Cassidy flinched, and Borie bolted. The leash slipped from her hand before she could react. Borie! No, no, no! Borie! She ran, dodging motorbikes, skidding across uneven pavement, heart pounding. Borie! Come on, baby, please! Another thunderclap split the air. Rain fell all at once, hard, cold, blinding. Cassidy didn't stop. Her hoodie clung to her skin, shoes soaked. Her breath ripped through her chest in gasps, but she didn't stop. Not when she slipped in a puddle and scraped her knee. Not when people stared from doorways like she was insane. Not when the sky screamed again. She didn't stop. 39 minutes later, She found him, huddled in the tunnel under a footbridge, trembling. His fur was soaked, eyes wide with fear, tail curled under. "Borie!" she gasped, falling to her knees. He didn't move. Cassidy reached slowly, ignoring the pain in her palms, the pounding in her ribs. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're okay. I got you." Borie whimpered once. She peeled off her drenched hoodie and wrapped it around him. He didn't resist, just collapsed into her arms, shivering. Cassidy cradled him like a child, rocking gently, forehead pressed to his wet fur. "You scared me," she said softly, voice cracking. "But I'm here. I'll always come for you." The black sedan screeched to a halt at the edge of the park. Seungjae threw the door open before it even fully stopped. "Where is he?" His voice was sharp, panicked. A jogger pointed. "Over there, in the tunnel." Seungjae ran. Rain soaked him instantly. His shoes splashed through standing water, coat clinging to his frame. His mind pulsed with one thought, over and over. "Please be okay. Please, please." He stopped cold at the tunnel entrance. Cassidy was sitting on the damp concrete, hoodie wrapped around the shivering dog, her hands gently stroking his head. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, rainwater dripping from her lashes. She didn't notice him. She was whispering, words not meant for anyone else. "I've got you. It's okay now. I'll take care of you." Seungjae stared, unmoving. He had never seen anything like it. This wasn't obligation. This wasn't convenience. This was love, real, irrational, reckless love, the kind that runs into storms for something small and sacred. He didn't know where the lump in his throat came from. He stepped forward quietly. Cassidy finally looked up. Her eyes, red-rimmed, tired, locked onto his. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she stood slowly, legs stiff, Borie still in her arms. "Here," she said hoarsely. "He's safe." She didn't wait for thanks. She walked past him and toward the car, the rain still pouring, her figure framed by the tunnel's dim light like some soaked, defiant miracle. Seungjae turned to follow her, but stopped. There it was again, that feeling. Like he had seen something rare and now didn't know what to do with it. Back at the penthouse, the silence was too loud. Cassidy sat on a towel in the foyer, drying Borie carefully with one of Seungjae's monogrammed hand towels. She worked quietly, tenderly, her fingers moving like a practiced lullaby. Seungjae stood nearby, watching. Cassidy didn't look up. "I don't need a thank you," she said finally. He blinked. "Then what do you need?" She paused, her hands stilled on Borie's fur. "I need you to stop treating me like a variable you forgot to account for." Seungjae's throat tightened. "I didn't mean—" "I know," she said quietly. "You never do." They stayed there, in the quiet, the city humming outside. After a long moment, he stepped forward. Silently, he held out a second towel. This one dry, warm. Cassidy took it. Their fingers brushed. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. But something shifted. The air between them now held something new. Not warmth exactly, but the possibility of it. Later that night, Yoon Group headquarters. Seungjae stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, rain streaking the glass. Hyun, his assistant, hovered nearby, shuffling papers. "Sir, about the new walker. Miss James, do you want me to replace her? Review her background again?" Seungjae didn't turn around. He watched the city instead, its chaos, its beauty, its silence. "Don't fire her," he said softly. "Ever." Hyun blinked. "Sir?" Seungjae finally turned, eyes tired but clear. She ran into a storm for something I love. Hyun nodded slowly. She's under contract, he offered. Seungjae looked past him. No, he said. She's something else. Cassidy stood on her studio balcony that night, wrapped in a towel, sipping weak ginger tea. Borie's spare leash hung over the doorknob, still damp, still waiting to dry. She stared into the city lights, blinking against the tiredness burning behind her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible, just seen, even if only for a moment. She wasn't sure what to do with that. And somewhere in a penthouse across the city, a CEO who never made mistakes was beginning to realize he had made one. Not seeing her sooner. In 2 days after the storm, the sky over Seoul was pristine, like it was pretending it didn't almost drown the city earlier in the week. Cassidy James didn't care. She was mid-stride down a tree-lined sidewalk with Borie trotting proudly ahead like he owned the district. His leash was loose in her hand, her headphones were halfway in, and she was still thinking about the way Seungjae had looked at her after the thunderstorm. Not grateful, not polite, something else. Something that made her heart stutter even now, just remembering it. She exhaled and shook it off. Nope, she muttered. Don't go catching feelings for your client, Cassidy, especially when he looks like he's allergic to warmth. Borie glanced back at her. Judgy. Don't start with me, Grumpy. Meanwhile, across town, inside a glass-walled office perched above Gangnam, Seungjae Yoon straightened his collar while a production assistant clipped a mic to his lapel. Live in 3 minutes, the woman chirped. He barely nodded. He hated interviews, but the quarterly numbers were late. Investor confidence was wobbling, and the board wanted him to project approachability, whatever that meant. Just smile a bit, Hyun had whispered before disappearing behind the cameras, and maybe don't look like a hostile robot. Seungjae sighed. I'm not hostile. I'm efficient. That's not better. The host, a polished woman with perfectly styled waves and a smile that could slice through tension, leaned forward at the halfway mark of the interview. So, CEO Yoon, let's talk about you, shall we? She said sweetly. Seungjae blinked. We've been talking about the company. Yes, but viewers are always curious about the person behind the empire, the man behind the tie. And I have to ask, she leaned in, eyes sparkling. Are you seeing anyone these days? There was a pause, the kind of pause that gets clipped into trailers, the kind of pause that holds 1,000 spinning calculations. Say no. Rumors of coldness continue. Say yes. Stability, warmth, headlines. Seungjae breathed in through his nose, then said casually, yes. The host lit up. Oh? That's unexpected. May we ask who she is? She's not in the public eye, he replied smoothly, but she's someone very special to me. Cue the headlines. Cue the chaos. 20 minutes later, Cassidy burst through the penthouse door like a woman on a mission. Borie yipped excitedly from his dog bed. Seungjae looked up from his laptop. You absolute maniac. He blinked. Excuse me? You told the entire country that you're dating someone without even telling the someone? He leaned back slightly, closing the laptop. I assume you saw the interview. You think? My phone blew up like it owed me money. My friend from Canada sent me a screenshot and said, Girl, is this your boss? I never said your name. Oh, well, that makes it fine. You're right. Now I just look like the mystery woman dating the world's iciest CEO. You're overreacting. Am I? She planted her hands on the back of the couch. Or is it underreacting to being used as a PR prop? I didn't use you. I made a strategic decision, she scoffed. To emotionally ground yourself using me? He stood. Investors respond better to executives with stability. A relationship implies trustworthiness. She glared. And you think this is trustworthy? faking a girlfriend without permission? I didn't fake you. I simply omitted a conversation. Oh, I hope you write your contracts that vaguely too. There was a beat of silence. Then, I can compensate you for the inconvenience. Oh, you better, she muttered, because I'm about to turn this into a headline of my own. 5 minutes later, he handed her a folder. Cassidy opened it and stared. Is this? A temporary contract, Seungjae confirmed. 3 weeks. Appearances only. No physical obligations. You'll be paid 5 times your current rate. Cassidy blinked. So, a fake dating contract. He nodded. You really think that solves this? I think it controls the narrative. She flipped through the terms. Bonuses for media appearances, clauses about discretion, car service, wardrobe stipend. She let out a low whistle. You're lucky I want to see you squirm in front of your own investors. I never squirm. Cassidy raised a brow. That sounds like a challenge. Is it? Oh, absolutely. She pulled a pen from her tote bag. I'll take it, she said, signing the line with a flourish. Then she looked up, eyes glittering with mischief. But let's be clear. This time, I'm the one doing the favor. Seungjae watched her, something unreadable flickering behind his expression. She capped the pen, pushed the folder toward him, and smiled like a lion who just figured out where the fence ends. Let's see who squirmed first. CEO. In the background, Borie barked once. Sharp, triumphant. The penthouse was quiet that evening. Too quiet. Cassidy stood in front of the full-length mirror near the entryway, smoothing down the wine-colored gown she'd reluctantly accepted from the wardrobe stylist Seungjae hired. The fabric skimmed her curves, the color rich against her skin. Her curls were swept into a soft, half-up twist, tendrils falling around her cheekbones. She looked like someone she hadn't seen in a long time. Not the girl in sweats walking 3 dogs a day. Not the polite, invisible foreigner blending into Seoul's crowd. Not even the sarcastic walker who'd taken on a Shiba and his CEO with nothing but a leash and a backbone. No, this was someone else. Someone who could walk into a room full of people who would never expect her and belong anyway. You ready? Cassidy turned. Seungjae stood a few feet away, adjusting his cufflinks. Black tailored suit. No tie. Undeniably elegant. The sleeves fit like they'd been cut with a scalpel. But it wasn't the suit that made her blink. It was the way he froze when he saw her. Just for a second. Then, quietly, You look. Cassidy tilted her head, amused. Like I'm here to ruin your reputation? A corner of his mouth lifted. Like you're going to end me. She grinned. Let's hope the cameras catch it. He extended his arm. Cassidy hesitated, then took it. Borie barked once from the foyer, tail wagging as if to say, Now go break some necks, queen. The Gala Grand Ballroom, Yoon Group annual fundraiser. Cassidy walked in like she'd done it 1,000 times, back straight, head high, that same wine-colored dress catching the low golden light like it was stitched with boldness. People turned. Some whispered. One executive's wife actually dropped her glass. Cassidy leaned into Seungjae slightly. You hearing this? He nodded, lips twitching. Stunned silence. Rare commodity. Should I start charging admission? You already do. A tray passed. She took a flute of sparkling cider instead of champagne. I don't drink, she explained under her breath. He didn't question it, just nodded. Respect. The crowd gathered around them faster than Cassidy expected. CEO Yoon, what a beautiful date you've brought. She's stunning. Do tell us, how did you two meet? Cassidy glanced at Seungjae, then smiled sweetly at the group. Oh, he hired me, she said. Everyone blinked. To walk his dog. A beat. Then laughter rippled through the group. Genuine, surprised. But I was apparently too charming to fire, she added, taking a sip. And Borie's a great judge of character. More laughter. Cassidy owned it. She didn't force her way in. She simply belonged, with a wit so sharp the edges caught everyone off guard. She navigated the circles with grace, her American Korean accent fluid, her observations sharp but never condescending. Seungjae, for his part, said almost nothing, but he watched her talk to a VP's wife about rescue shelters, watched her explain how Korean sidewalks were not built for large dogs, watched her laugh, not just politely, freely, and something in his chest moved. He didn't expect this, didn't expect to feel proud, didn't expect to feel drawn. Cassidy turned at one point, mid-laugh, and caught him watching. What? He shook his head. Nothing. But she saw it. That flicker in his eyes. That pause. Later, outside, the rooftop balcony shimmered under fairy lights. The hum of string music floated from the ballroom below. Cassidy leaned on the railing, sipping the last of her cider. The Seoul skyline glittered in the distance. She felt him step beside her without looking. You handled tonight better than expected, Seungjae said softly. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. Cassidy glanced at him. You're bad at compliments, you know that? I don't give many. Well, maybe practice on your fake girlfriend first. He turned toward her slightly. Thank you, for tonight. She softened. Just a bit. You're welcome. A quiet settled. Heavy, warm. I've faked plenty of smiles before, she murmured, watching the lights. But tonight, I didn't have to. That surprised him. He looked at her fully now. Hair loose around her face, skin glowing. That fire in her eyes dimmed just enough to let something gentler peek through. She turned to face him too, and for a moment, just one fragile, infinite moment, he leaned in, close, slow. Cassidy didn't move. Her breath caught. Her lips parted, barely. But just before he reached her, CEO Yoon, photo opportunity inside. The voice shattered the silence like a glass dropped on concrete. Cassidy pulled back instantly. The moment folded like a paper crane and vanished. She blinked. Right. Public appearances, forgot? He didn't say anything. She turned to go, then paused, and without turning around, she said, Next time, try harder. Inside, cameras flashed. Cassidy posed with poise, arm through Seungjae's. He smiled the bare minimum for PR. But his eyes weren't looking at the cameras. They were watching her, always her. And when she laughed, at something the host said, or maybe just to herself, it wasn't the polite, restrained laugh of a woman trying to fit in. It was hers. And in the middle of the chaos, Seungjae murmured to no one but himself, I liked your real smile better. Sunday, 11 a.m., the Yoon family estate, just outside Seoul. It didn't look like a house. It looked like a declaration. Long stone drive, guarded gate, carved eaves and wide glass doors. Every flower bed arranged like it had been designed by a military strategist. Cassidy sat in the back of the sleek black sedan Seungjae had sent, Borie on her lap and anxiety curling low in her stomach. She smoothed her dress again. Simple cream wrap dress, neat braids, flats, no jewelry. She hadn't come to impress. She came to breathe in her own skin. You sure about this? She asked Borie softly. He tilted his head, tail thumping once. Loyal, unbothered. Cassidy sighed. Right. You've got no idea we're walking into the lion's den. The car pulled up the final stretch of gravel. She saw a figure waiting on the steps, tall, thin, posture stiff as steel. Seungjae's mother. Cassidy opened the door herself. The drawing room smelled faintly of jasmine and cold judgment. She had barely stepped in when the chill set in, not from the air conditioning, but from the woman seated on the white settee, perfectly framed by a cherry blossom screen and untouched porcelain tea. Madame Yoon, not a single hair out of place. She looked Cassidy up and down once. No greeting, no smile. Cassidy's spine straightened on instinct. "I see," Madame Yoon said flatly. "So it's not just a rumor." Cassidy met her gaze. "Nice to meet you too. Let's be honest. You're not here to meet me." She sipped tea, unbothered. "You're here because Seungjae asked you to be." That much is clear. "And yet," Cassidy said calmly, "here I am, on time, respectfully dressed, polite." She smiled without warmth. "You're welcome." A flicker of surprise in the older woman's eyes. Not fear, not deference. Composure. She hated that. "You've caused quite the stir, Miss James. The media has taken notice." "A dog walker?" She scoffed. "Foreign, at that. The family name is not for public performance." Cassidy folded her hands in her lap. "Then maybe don't stage your son's life like a scripted show." That earned her a cold, narrow stare. "I assume you're enjoying this attention?" Cassidy's voice didn't waver. "I'm enjoying the fact that your son hired me because his dog liked me, and kept me because he did too." Madame Yoon blinked, just once. "And now you're here, eating off my china, pretending you fit." Cassidy stood slowly. "Let's get something straight." Her voice was calm, low, dangerous. "I didn't come here to pretend. I came because I was invited. I showed up respectfully, quietly, and still. Before I even opened my mouth, you decided I wasn't enough." Silence. "You don't know me, but you've already written my part in your play. The outsider, the interruption." Cassidy took a step forward. "You're not the first person to look me in the face and decide I don't belong. But I stopped waiting for acceptance a long time ago." She exhaled. Borie moved closer to her, like a shadow. "I walk into rooms I was never meant to enter, and I leave them better than I found them. I don't beg. I don't perform. And I will not shrink to fit your expectations." The silence cracked like ice. Footsteps echoed behind her. Seungjae. He had walked in halfway through the conversation. Cassidy didn't turn. His mother stood, regal, pale, furious. "You'll never fit into this world," she said coldly. Cassidy smiled softly. "Then maybe it's time this world makes more room." She turned, walked past Seungjae without a word. Her eyes didn't even flicker toward him. She walked like a queen who knew exactly how far she'd come and exactly what it cost. Seungjae stood frozen. He had heard it all, every word. He wasn't sure what shocked him more, that Cassidy didn't cry, or that she didn't need him to defend her. His mother turned to him, composure cracking. "You're being reckless." "No," he said quietly. "I'm being careful. For once. She will cost you everything." He looked toward the door, the shadow of Cassidy's back still faint on the polished floors. "She's the only thing that's made any of this feel real." Madame Yoon narrowed her eyes. "You think this is love?" "I think," Seungjae said, "she doesn't need my name, or my world, or your blessing. And somehow, that makes me want to give her all of it." Outside, Cassidy exhaled, deep, shaky. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried in years. Not in rooms where people stared before she spoke. Not when they whispered behind hands or made assumptions wrapped in politeness. Not when she worked 3 jobs just to survive in a city where she still got asked, "So what brought you to Korea?" Like she was some kind of lost passport. No, she didn't cry. She just kept walking. Borie patted beside her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Yoon. "Your car is waiting at the gate. Let me know if you need anything." Cassidy typed, "I've got everything I need." Then she looked up and realized Seungjae was standing in the doorway watching her leave. Expression unreadable. eyes, something else. Not pity, not guilt, respect, maybe even awe, and something softer, something he hadn't let himself feel in a long, long time. He stayed there long after the gate closed behind her, because now he understood. She didn't need saving. She was already whole. And for the first time in his life, he was the one struggling to keep up. Tuesday, 1:42 a.m., Yoon Group HQ, 48th floor. The monitors still glowed. Emails continued arriving like static. Legal flagged 6 threats. PR drafted a preliminary statement. The head of cybersecurity hadn't stopped stammering for the last hour. Seungjae Yoon hadn't spoken since 10:17 p.m. He stood at the wall of windows in his glass office, hands in his pockets, tie loosened, staring at Seoul as though the skyline might offer answers. Behind him, the fragments of control. Hackers had breached one of their client-side databases. Nothing catastrophic, but just enough to raise suspicions, rock trust, and give investors an excuse to panic. The board wanted blood. The press wanted clarity. And Seungjae, he wanted silence. Not PR silence, not a well-worded memo, just space. And he didn't know where to find it anymore. By 2:18 a.m., the building had emptied, except for him and, unbeknownst to him, Cassidy. She had come with homemade biscuits for Borie, but the doorman had looked spooked. There was some issue at the company. Mr. Yoon left here 5 hours ago. He hasn't returned. Cassidy didn't ask questions. She just turned and hailed a taxi. Now she stood in the elevator, Borie at her side, her stomach knotting. She didn't know what she was expecting, but it wasn't this. Seungjae was on the rooftop, sitting on the edge of a stone bench, shoulders low, tie discarded on the concrete. His hair looked like he'd run his hands through it 100 times. When Cassidy stepped out of the stairwell, he didn't react. He just kept looking up at nothing. She walked slowly, no words, no small talk. Borie padded forward and sat at his feet. Finally, Seungjae blinked. "How did you find me?" Cassidy sank to her knees beside him, reaching out to gently touch Borie's back. "You left a trail," she said. "Even silence makes noise when it's not normal." His laugh was soft, bitter. "The board wants to crucify me. Investors are on the verge of collapse. My mother left 17 voicemails telling me I've humiliated the family." He looked over at her. "I can't afford this moment." Cassidy didn't flinch. "Then don't think of it as a moment. Think of it as breathing." He blinked. "You do remember how to breathe, right?" she said gently. A pause. She leaned forward, slow. "Follow me." "Okay?" Her voice dropped into something softer. "In through your nose. Slow. And out through your mouth." He didn't move. "Try it." And then, finally, he did. One breath, then another. She watched his chest lift, then lower. Her hand found his. His palm was cold, tense. "Seungjae," she whispered, "you're not alone." His head turned sharply toward her, and suddenly it cracked. Whatever armor he'd layered on since childhood, since prep schools and legacy dinners, since boardrooms that demanded silence, and fathers who equated value with output. His voice dropped hoarse. "I don't know how to do this without destroying everything." She didn't let go of his hand. "You don't have to do it alone," she repeated. He stared at her, the way her curls caught the wind, the gentle curve of her brow, the steadiness in her eyes. No judgment, no performance, just her. Cassidy leaned in, slowly. She brushed her forehead gently against his. Not a kiss, but a vow, a whisper of intimacy louder than anything else. Seungjae closed his eyes. One breath, then another, and then he did something dangerous. He held her hand, tight, too long, like he was afraid to let go. Cassidy's heart thudded once, loud, but then he pulled back, quietly, carefully, like reality had crept back in, like he'd remembered who he was supposed to be. He stood slowly, cleared his throat, back straight. I should call legal. There's a meeting in the morning. Cassidy didn't stop him. She just stood, brushing the gravel dust from her jeans. Call whoever you need, she said softly. But tonight, she looked at him, steady. You didn't collapse. You let someone see you. He looked at her for a beat too long, then turned and walked to the stairs. Later that night, Cassidy lay in bed with Borie curled at her side, scrolling through news headlines about the breach. Yoon Group faces scrutiny. Investor confidence wavers after security leak. CEO Yoon remains silent amidst growing pressure. Cassidy turned off the screen. She stared at the ceiling and whispered into the dark, I saw you tonight, Seungjae, and I liked what I saw. At the Yoon penthouse, Seungjae sat at the kitchen counter. The lights were off. His hand still smelled faintly of her citrus lotion. And though the world expected his next move, the only thing he could think about was how it felt to breathe with her. Cassidy didn't mean to start a fight. She had only dropped off Borie's new harness. That was it. In and out. She had even worn her non-threatening navy hoodie, the one with the soft edges and quiet logo. But the moment she stepped into the penthouse and saw Seungjae hunched over his kitchen counter, half-finished takeout to one side, legal documents scattered across the marble, and 2 untouched espresso shots going cold. She forgot every script she'd rehearsed in the elevator. You haven't slept, she said, stepping inside. He didn't look up. I'm fine. Liar. Cassidy. His voice was low, clipped. Not now. Then when? When you collapse again? When the board eats you alive? When your mother frames it as weakness for not being born emotionally robotic? He finally looked up, eyes dark, rimmed in exhaustion. I said I'm fine. You're not. And I'm not going to sit here pretending you are. What do you want from me? He snapped, pushing back from the counter. Cassidy blinked. The words cut deeper than she expected. She stepped back. What do I want from you? Her laugh came out jagged. You're the one who pulled me into this lie. You're the one who made me your walking headline and fed me to your world. And now you're asking what I want? Seungjae exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't supposed to get this complicated. No, Cassidy said, it wasn't. Because you thought I'd just show up, smile, keep the peace, and disappear. I didn't think that. Yes, you did. You thought I'd be convenient, charming, low maintenance, not someone who has feelings or opinions or expectations. He looked at her, finally, fully. You think I don't see you? I think you refuse to. Because if you did, you'd have to admit I'm not just part of your PR strategy. I'm someone who showed up in your storm and stayed. I didn't ask you to stay, he said. Quiet, dangerous, and Cassidy broke. I think I'm falling in love with you, she said. Just like that. No buildup, no breath. And I hate it. The words fell into the silence like a dropped glass. Seungjae didn't move. Not at first. Cassidy's voice wavered. I hate that I care whether you've eaten. I hate that I notice when you stop wearing your watch because you're spiraling. I hate that I can't walk through Seoul without wondering if you're alone in this damn building, convincing yourself you're not drowning. Her throat tightened. I hate that I'm the only one willing to say it, because you never say anything unless it's in a board memo. And then he moved, across the floor, fast, certain. He stopped inches from her. I already did, he said. Cassidy blinked. What? I already fell, Seungjae whispered. It wasn't loud, but it split her open. I didn't know it. I didn't want it, But every time you left, the room felt wrong. Every time you smiled at Borie, I wanted to be the reason. She inhaled sharply. I can't pretend you're just part of a contract anymore, he said. You're not a headline. You're the only thing in my life that doesn't feel performative. The tension snapped. He leaned in, and this time, she met him halfway. The kiss wasn't gentle. All sharp edges and buried longing. His hands in her curls, her palms flat on his chest. A breathless gasp as their mouths collided and collided again. No calculation, no choreography, just heat, just truth, just them. His hands found her waist, pulled her closer. She clutched the collar of his shirt like it was the only solid thing in a world made of static. When they broke, it was barely a breath apart. Cassidy's lips were trembling, her voice smaller now. This is a bad idea. Probably. We have a contract. It'll expire. Your mother will kill me. She'd have to get through me first. Cassidy stared up at him, dazed, lips still parted. And then he said it, soft, barely more than a breath. Stay. The air shifted. Cassidy froze, because that wasn't about the gala night, or the contract, or the storm between them. That was the one word he had never offered to anyone. Stay. Not as a possession, not as a placeholder, but as a choice. And now he was offering it to her, with eyes wide open, with his heart, finally, on the table. Cassidy didn't answer. Not yet, but she didn't walk away. Morning light, Borie's tale, her smile, his peace. The change came slowly, quietly, not in grand declarations, but in ordinary moments. The toothbrush Cassidy left by the sink, the way Seungjae started buying two of everything without realizing it. Borie now claimed the middle of the bed like a child who knew his parents were too whipped to move him. Cassidy woke one morning with her head tucked under Seungjae's chin, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. She didn't move. Neither did he. They just lay there, breathing in sync, like they had always known how. Seungjae learning to scramble eggs, with 2 YouTube tutorials and 1 pan casualty. Cassidy laughing at his Thai selection before meetings, choosing the least robotic one. Borie watching them with the smug satisfaction of a matchmaker who had finally succeeded. Late nights sharing tangerines and terrible jokes on the couch, legs tangled, hands always reaching. Quiet mornings, when Cassidy whispered, I prayed for you today, and Seungjae replied, I know, I felt it, but the world wasn't built for peace, not for people like Cassidy, not in their world. Saturday, the annual Yoon Group fundraiser. Cassidy stood under the chandeliers of a 5-star ballroom, wrapped in a deep forest green gown that hugged every curve. Her curls were swept to one side, lips glossed in copper. Her skin glowed. She didn't blend in. She stood out. And Seungjae didn't look away once. The crowd was full of polished executives, board members, socialites with curated smiles. They circled them like reporters at a scandal. But Cassidy handled them. Warm, quick-witted, elegant. She answered questions in perfect Korean, made sharp jokes in English, and told a story about Borie shredding a $300 throw pillow that left an entire circle of department heads in stitches. Seungjae hovered near the bar for a moment, just long enough to watch her from a distance. She looked whole, unafraid, like she was finally herself in a room that had no script for her, until he heard it. 2 older board members standing near the wine table, laughing low. She's certainly pretty, one said, but come on. A foreign woman? They never stay. The second chuckled, especially not black ones. You know how they are, always chasing money or marriage visas. Disrespectful to his family. She'll never understand our ways. The laughter that followed was soft, familiar. The same kind Seungjae had heard since prep school, since his father's dinners. The kind of laughter that built walls without using nails. He set his drink down, walked toward them like a man who had chosen violence, dressed in silk. They looked up mid-laugh. CEO Yoon, we didn't see you there. I heard you. His voice was ice under velvet. Just harmless talk. There's nothing harmless about racism disguised as tradition. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. The men blinked. Pardon? Cassidy James is more dignified than most people in this room. She walks into spaces that would swallow others and leaves them better than she found them. Someone nearby choked on a drink. Your laughter? That's not harmless. It's historic, and it's tired. He turned and walked away. Cameras had caught it. So had half the room. Cassidy, standing by the grand piano, froze. She had heard every word. Later, on the rooftop terrace, the city stretched below them like a glittering confession. Cassidy stood near the railing, her wrap pulled tight around her shoulders, the wind threading through her curls. Seungjae stepped up beside her, his coat already half off. Here, he offered, settling it gently on her shoulders. She didn't look at him. I heard what they said, he exhaled. So did I. I've heard it before, just not with so many chandeliers around. She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but it cracked halfway through. I spent so much of my life walking into rooms like that, she whispered, rooms where I'm stared at before I even open my mouth, where I have to prove I belong. Every time. Seungjae's hands curled into fists, and when I finally feel seen, when someone like you sees me, I start to wonder how long before that stops too. She turned to face him, eyes shining, voice small. I wonder how long before even you stop seeing me. That broke something in him. He stepped closer, his voice low. I don't just see you, Cassidy. I watch the room through your eyes now. Her lip trembled. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I see how you hold your breath when they start a sentence with girls like you. I see how you scan for exits in rooms where no one looks like you. I see you flinch when they smile too much. Or not at all. She blinked quickly. And I swear to you, he whispered, you will never disappear in my eyes. Cassidy stared up at him, wanting to believe it, needing to. But the world didn't change just because someone loved you. And trust, real trust, takes more than promises on a rooftop. Still, her fingers found his, and she held on, just enough to keep standing. 1 week later, Monday morning, Yoon family estate. The call had come at dawn. No greeting, no pleasantries, just his father's voice on speaker. Come to the estate. Now. Seungjae left before sunrise. No tie, no coat. Just a clean shirt, and the kind of dread that no amount of money could smooth. The family estate, immaculate as always, looked like it was waiting to swallow him whole. White gravel, silent guards, windows like watchful eyes. Inside, the air was heavy with green tea and expectation. His father sat at the head of the long lacquered table, fingers steepled, eyes like knives. His mother, poised and pale, poured herself tea with surgical precision. Seungjae stayed standing. You called me, he said flatly. I'm here. His father's voice came like a blade. We're done tolerating your experiment. Seungjae's jaw tightened. Experiment? That girl, his father snapped. She is not your equal. She is not Korean. She is not tradition. And she is costing you everything we built. She's costing you nothing, he snapped back. She's costing you credibility, investors whisper. Board members doubt. Even the press mocks you now. This is not just about your image. It's about the survival of Yoon Group. Seungjae's mother finally spoke. Her tone was quieter, but sharper. You're not a boy anymore, Seungjae. You can't run your life like a rebellion. You must protect the family. He almost laughed. By being miserable? By being smart. His father leaned forward. End it. Today. Or lose everything. Seungjae's jaw flexed. Everything? Your inheritance. Your board seat. Control of the company. His father's voice was calm now. The calm of someone setting an execution schedule. And the dog stays with us. For the first time, Seungjae's composure cracked. Borie? His mother's eyes flicked up. He is a family asset. He'll remain here. You can get another. You're threatening me with a dog? Seungjae asked softly. No, his father said. We're threatening you with your future. That night, Cassidy's apartment. Cassidy had been grading online course assignments at her kitchen table when the knock came. Borie lifted his head, tail thumping once. She opened the door. Seungjae stood there, shirt creased, eyes shadowed, hands trembling like he'd been holding something too heavy for too long. You look like someone died, she said slowly. He stepped inside without waiting. What happened? She asked. He swallowed. His throat worked. They gave me an ultimatum. Cassidy's fingers curled around the doorframe. What kind of ultimatum? They want me to end it. His voice cracked. Us. Her chest tightened. Or what? Or they strip me of the company. The inheritance? Everything. Cassidy's chin lifted. So? He broke off. Looked at her. Really looked at her. They'll take Borie too. Cassidy blinked. Borie? He nodded once. A small, broken movement. They called him a family asset. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Cassidy stepped back. And what are you going to do? He laughed bitterly. What do you think? I've been fighting them my whole life. But this isn't just me. There are employees, families depending on the company staying afloat. You're telling me you're choosing them over me? I'm trying to protect you, he said desperately. If I fight now, they'll destroy you in the press. They'll drag your name, your family, everything. You've seen what they're capable of. Her eyes burned. Don't do that. Don't turn this into some noble sacrifice. Don't decide for me what I can survive. I'm not. His voice broke. He took a step closer. I love you. Cassidy's breath caught. He whispered it again, softer. I love you. She blinked hard. Then why are you here? Because I still have to let you go. The words hit like a blow. He lifted his hand like he might touch her face, then dropped it. Borie whined softly from the corner. Cassidy swallowed hard. Get out! Cassidy, get out! He hesitated, then stepped backward. She didn't slam the door. She closed it softly. On the other side, Seungjae stood staring at the wood grain, one hand pressed flat against it. I love you, he whispered again, to a door that didn't open. Inside, Cassidy stood frozen, hands balled into fists, tears she refused to shed burning her eyes. Borie crawled into her lap. She wrapped her arms around him and buried her face in his fur. Cassidy's apartment, 11 p.m. Rain hissed against the windowpane. The city below glimmered with neon and wet asphalt. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ginger tea and the lavender oil Cassidy used to calm Borie after storms. Seungjae stood in the doorway, still damp from the mist outside, hands trembling as he tried to keep them steady in his pockets. Cassidy hadn't sat down since he'd arrived. She stood by the kitchen counter, back straight, jaw set like she was bracing for an earthquake. You can't decide for me, she said, voice low but sharp. You can't tell me you love me and then walk away like it's some grand act of mercy. I'm not walking away, he said hoarsely. I'm trying to protect you. By leaving? She laughed, bitter. Newsflash, Seungjae. Walking away isn't protection. It's abandonment dressed up as chivalry. He stepped forward. Cassidy, no. She slammed her hand on the counter. You don't get to come in here and make this choice for both of us. You don't get to decide that I'm some fragile outsider who can't survive your world. I've seen what my family does to people, he said, voice breaking. I've seen them tear apart lives because someone didn't fit their blueprint. I won't let them do it to you. She stared at him, eyes blazing. I've spent my whole life walking into rooms that weren't built for me, being stared at before I even spoke, surviving that. You think I can't survive this? It's different. It's not, she snapped. It's just another room. Another test, another door slammed in my face, silence stretched, heavy and fragile. She took a step closer, eyes glistening but dry. I would have stayed, she whispered, even if it hurt, even if it was hard, because you're worth it. He looked at her like she was sunlight through a locked window. Cassidy, but you're leaving. Her voice cracked then, the first tear slipping down. You're leaving, and you're calling it protection, so you don't have to admit you're scared. He flinched as if she'd struck him. I thought it would be easier if you hated me, he said quietly. She shook her head, breath hitching. Congratulations! Borie whined from his dog bed. Cassidy turned, reaching for the leash, fumbling with the clasp just to keep her hands busy. Go, she said. Cassidy, go! Her voice rose this time, ragged and breaking. If you're going to leave, then leave. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then he stepped back. His hand brushed the doorframe like he wanted to anchor himself, but there was nothing to hold on to. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be sorry, she said, not looking at him. Be gone. The door clicked shut. Cassidy stayed frozen for a moment. Then she slid down to the floor. I'm okay, she whispered, though her voice trembled. I'm okay. Seungjae's penthouse. Later that night. The place was too clean, too still. He walked to the kitchen automatically, opened the cabinet, reached for 2 mugs, then stopped. 1 mug. He poured himself coffee he didn't want, stared at the empty side of the counter where her travel mug used to sit. Everything felt wrong, the silence too loud. He tried to feed Borie, chicken, salmon, pumpkin rice, but the dog just stared at the bowl, then turned his head dramatically, curling up by the balcony door. Eat, Seungjae murmured. Please. Borie didn't move. Seungjae crouched down, fingers trembling as he set the bowl aside. You're grieving too, huh? He whispered. The dog blinked once, unblinking. Seungjae pressed his palms to his face. For a moment, the world shrank to just the sound of his own ragged breathing and the weight of everything he had just thrown away. He looked at the space where Cassidy had once stood drying Borie's paws, her laugh filling the kitchen. And then, softly, so softly the rain against the glass almost swallowed it. He whispered, I miss you. Borie raised his head, ears flicking, then lowered it again with a soft, mournful sigh. Seungjae's penthouse. Day 3, without Cassidy. The silence was oppressive now. The city's hum filtered in through glass walls, but inside there was only stillness, and a small, defiant Shiba Inu lying on his side like a Victorian child in a fainting couch. Borie hadn't eaten since Cassidy left. Not kibble, not salmon, not chicken hand-fed with chopsticks, not even his beloved pumpkin rice. Come on, Borie. Seungjae knelt by the bowl, voice low. Please. Borie sniffed the food, gave Seungjae a single withering look, and turned his head away with the gravity of a monarch dismissing a subject. Seungjae exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose. You're emotionally blackmailing me. The dog sighed loudly. Seungjae brings home gourmet meals. Borie stared at each offering, then dramatically rested his head on the floor like he'd been mortally wounded. Seungjae Googled healing meals for depressed dogs at 3 a.m. Borie refuses everything. Seungjae sits on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinets, muttering, "You're killing me, you little tyrant." Blind date. Nummer 1, Gangnam Bistro. Seungjae sat across from a flawless heiress, fluent in French, Mandarin, and English. She reached down to pat Borie under the table. "Aw, he's so cute," she cooed. Borie stared at her hand, blinked, then started barking so loudly 3 tables turned. The girl jumped back. What's wrong with him?" Seungjae sipped his water. "He has taste." Blind date number 2, Rooftop Cafe. This one offered Borie a treat. Borie took it politely, stared her dead in the eye, then spat it out. "Did he just—" the girl gasped. "Yeah," Seungjae muttered. "He did." By date number 3, Borie didn't even wait. He limped theatrically into the cafe before the woman could say hello, dragging his paw like he was wounded. "Oh my God, is he okay?" the woman asked, kneeling. "He's fine," Seungjae said flatly. Borie limped harder. Seungjae buried his face in his hand. "He's faking it," he hissed under his breath. The date ended in 10 minutes. Cassidy's World, Mapo District. Cassidy scrolled her phone while waiting for a client's payment. Her former dog-walking friend, Ji-eun, slid into the cafe booth across from her, grinning. "You won't believe this," Ji-eun said. "Your CEO's on a disaster streak. 3 blind dates, 3 catastrophes. The dog's basically sabotaging him." Cassidy blinked. "He brought Borie?" "Every time." Cassidy bit her lip to hide a smile. "Borie never liked strangers." Ji-eun laughed. "Sounds like he's loyal to you. People online are already calling it #Shiba sabotage." Cassidy rolled her eyes, but warmth flickered in her chest. She pictured Seungjae at those dates, exhausted, trying to manage a dog with the soul of a soap opera actor. "He's persistent," she murmured. Seungjae's penthouse, 4th night. Borie hadn't eaten at all. Seungjae sat on the kitchen floor, bowl in his lap, tie undone, hair a mess. He whispered like a man confessing to a priest. "Please eat, Borie." "What do you want? Do you want me to bring her back?" "I can't. She left because of me." Borie crawled closer and rested his head on Seungjae's knee. "I miss her too," Seungjae whispered. Then Borie gave a small, pitiful whine and collapsed sideways. Seungjae's heart stopped. "Borie?" He set the bowl aside. "Borie!" The dog didn't move, just lay there, still, eyes closed, tongue slightly out. "Oh my God!" Seungjae scooped him up, panic rising in his throat. "No, no, no! Don't do this!" He grabbed his phone, thumb trembling. He had sworn he wouldn't call her. He had sworn to let her live her life. But as Borie lay limp in his arms, the promise broke. He dialed. It rang once, twice. Cassidy's apartment. Same moment. Cassidy was sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting through old invoices, Borie's spare toys piled nearby. She'd been telling herself she was fine. She'd been telling herself she was over it. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Seungjae Yoon. She almost didn't answer. Then she heard his voice. "It's Borie. He's not moving. I think something's wrong." Cassidy was already on her feet before he finished the sentence. She didn't even grab a coat. She just ran. Seungjae knelt on the floor of the penthouse, Borie limp in his lap, phone still pressed to his ear. "Please hurry," he whispered. The dog gave no sign. For the first time in years, Seungjae felt utterly helpless, and the only name on his lips, the only one who might save them both, was Cassidy. Yoon penthouse. 9:42 p.m. Cassidy didn't remember how she got there. Her body moved faster than her brain. One second she was in her apartment with her shoes half off, the next she was pounding on the penthouse door, breathless, heart slamming against her ribs. It swung open before she could knock a second time. Seungjae stood in the doorway, barefoot, pale, eyes wild. He opened his mouth, but Cassidy was already shoving past him. "Where is he?" "He's over." "Cassidy, wait." Too late. She dropped to her knees by the sofa. Borie lay sprawled on his side on the rug, his little legs extended like he was halfway to the pearly gates. Tongue out, eyes closed. "Oh my God," she whispered, reaching out. "Borie, baby, it's me." Seungjae hovered behind her. He collapsed about 15 minutes ago. He wasn't eating, barely moved all day. Has he vomited? Diarrhea? Anything? No. Just this. She gently touched Borie's side. "Baby, wake up. I'm here." Borie opened one eye. Cassidy froze. "Wait." The dog yawned, stretched, sat up. Seungjae blinked. "What the?" Borie wagged his tail, walked up to Cassidy, climbed into her lap. "Are you kidding me?" she hissed. Borie licked her cheek and flopped dramatically onto her thighs like he'd just survived a war. Cassidy stared at him, slack-jawed. "You manipulative little drama queen." Seungjae looked just as stunned. "He faked it?" Cassidy glared at him. "Of course he faked it. This dog watched 3 seasons of a medical drama with me." Borie huffed smugly. 15 minutes later, Cassidy sat cross-legged on the floor, towel drying Borie while muttering, "You had me ready to call an ambulance." For a dog. Seungjae stood by the kitchen island, silent. Eventually Cassidy looked up. "Well, say something." He exhaled. "I didn't call because of the dog." She blinked. "What?" He stepped forward slowly. "I mean, yes, I was scared, but I could have called the vet. I could have called the handler, but I called you." Cassidy stared. "I told myself I wouldn't, that I'd give you space, but you're the only person I wanted to hear." He sat across from her, eyes steady. "I tried to protect you by losing you," he said, voice low, raw, "but I only destroyed myself." The air between them shifted. "I thought it was the noble thing," he continued, "letting you go so my family wouldn't hurt you, so the board wouldn't drag you. I told myself I was keeping you safe, but all I did was empty my life of the only thing that made it real." Cassidy swallowed hard. Her hands stilled on Borie's fur. "I miss you in every corner of this place. Your tea mug still in the cabinet. Your laugh is in the walls. I can't even pick out a damn tie without hearing your voice." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then why did you let me go?" "Because I was afraid." He leaned closer. "Because I've spent my whole life pretending control is love. That order is protection. But then you came in with your sarcasm and your fire and your presence, and you turned everything upside down." Borie huffed dramatically, shifted positions, and closed his eyes. Neither of them moved. Then Seungjae whispered, voice breaking, "If you still love me?" Cassidy looked at him. "Don't go." Her breath caught. The room narrowed to just the two of them. Cassidy's heart thudded. Her mind raced back. Through laughter on rooftops, quiet dinners with Borie between them, the first kiss that felt like a dam breaking, and the brutal sound of his voice saying, "I still have to let you go." Now here he was, wrecked, real, open. "If you still love me, don't go." The words hovered in the air like a prayer, fragile, terrifying, and deeply true. Cassidy slowly rose to her feet. Borie shifted off her lap but didn't stir otherwise, as if sensing the gravity in the room. She took a step forward. So did he. "I didn't stop loving you," she said, voice steady. "That's the problem. Their eyes locked. I hated you for making me feel disposable, she continued, like I was someone to protect instead of someone to choose. I was wrong, Seungjae said. So wrong. She looked down. Her voice trembled just once. But you called. I did. And you said everything I needed to hear before I left. His hand twitched at his side, aching to reach for her. I didn't want to lose you again without telling the truth. Cassidy stepped close enough to hear his breathing shift. Good, she whispered, because if I walk out that door now... She didn't finish. He leaned in, not touching her. Just close enough. You still haven't answered me, he murmured. Do you love me? Cassidy stared into his eyes, then said, slowly, honestly, like it hurt and healed, all at once. Yes, I do. The silence that followed was sacred. Then she reached for his hand and curled her fingers around his. Borie snorted like he'd known all along. Yoon penthouse. Morning light. The rain had passed. Soft golden light filtered through the tall windows, bathing the living room in quiet. The chaos of the night before had faded. Borie was asleep on his back, one paw dangling off the couch like he had no regrets about the drama he'd orchestrated. Cassidy sat curled on the edge of the sofa, still wearing yesterday's sweatshirt. Her knees were drawn up beneath her chin, her curls tousled from sleep and worry. Across from her, Seungjae knelt with a steaming mug of ginger tea in hand, the way she used to make it. I still remember, he said softly, handing it to her. She accepted it without speaking, their fingers brushing, just barely. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full, weighty, holding everything unsaid for far too long. Finally, she exhaled. I never stopped, she said quietly, staring into the tea. Seungjae blinked. Stopped. What? Loving you. She looked up. Her voice was steadier now. I tried to. I wanted to. I told myself it wasn't worth the pain. A soft laugh. But every time I saw something familiar, a red mug, a silk tie, a dog doing something ridiculous, I missed you. I missed us. Seungjae swallowed, chest tight. I thought I broke you, he said. You did, she replied, honest but without malice. But I healed, and somehow, I still want you. His hand reached for hers again. This time, she didn't hesitate. Their eyes held each other, then slowly. He leaned in. So did she. Their lips met. Not like the first time, frantic and hungry. This was different. Soft, slow, healing. A kiss that whispered, we survived. A kiss that said, I choose you again. Yoon Group headquarters, 2 days later. The boardroom was full. Cold water bottles lined the long table. Men in suits murmured behind their hands. The air smelled of expensive ink and control. Seungjae walked in alone. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, top button undone. Calm, composed. But the fire in his eyes was unmistakable. His father was already seated. His mother sat beside him, face unreadable. As you all know, the chairman began, the Yoon family has built its legacy on integrity, tradition, and strength. However, due to recent distractions, my son will be stepping down. No. The word cut through the room like a blade. Seungjae stepped forward. I'm not stepping down. In fact, I've called this meeting. Gasps. Excuse me? The chairman growled. Seungjae placed a folder on the table. This is the future strategy plan for our 3 underperforming divisions. We cut excess, reinvested in sustainability, and restructured partnerships. All signed, all approved, without your name on a single line. He looked at every board member. I've saved this company, not by being your son, but by being a leader. The room was still. His mother's lips pressed into a line. You've embarrassed us. Choosing a woman who'll never be accepted? I chose a woman who chose me back even when I had nothing to offer but grief, Seungjae said, voice calm but deadly clear. And I'd rather build with her from scratch than inherit a throne made of silence and shame. His father stood furious. You're nothing without this name. Seungjae smiled, slow and certain. I just proved I am. Silence. Then, murmurs of approval. A board member tapped the table, nodding slowly. Another echoed the gesture. His mother stood abruptly. Then you're no longer our son. The words sliced the air. Cassidy's face flickered in Seungjae's mind. The kiss. Her voice. I never stopped. And then, Seungjae smiled. Not sad, not bitter, free. Then I guess I'm finally my own man. Seungjae walked out of the boardroom alone. No security, no family behind him. Just his steps. Steady, unshaken. He pulled out his phone and tapped the message draft he never sent. Everything I just walked away from? It's yours now if you still want me. He hit send. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. A new day had begun, and for the first time in years, so had Seungjae. Yoon penthouse. 1 week later. It started with the pillows. Cassidy didn't mean to redecorate, at first, but after she tripped over Seungjae's cold gray throw blanket for the 5th time and nearly cracked her shin against a slab of marble disguised as a coffee table, she decided the penthouse needed a little soul. First came warm-toned throw pillows with embroidered scripture verses in English and Korean. Then a small wooden bookshelf placed by the window, filled with her poetry anthologies, devotional journals, and a few dog-eared novels that had made her cry once and healed her twice. The sound of classical piano was still there, Seungjae's choice, but now it competed with gospel loops from her phone, Afro beats from her cleaning playlist, and Borie's disgruntled barking whenever the vacuum got too close, and laughter, so much laughter. One morning in the kitchen, Cassidy stood barefoot on the heated tile floor, hair tied up in a scarf, flipping pancakes with the confidence of a woman who knew exactly how much cinnamon was just enough. She wore one of Seungjae's old button-downs over leggings, sleeves rolled to her elbows, music humming softly behind her. Seungjae leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, quietly observing. He had on sweats, no suit, no tie, just softness, inside and out. He tilted his head. You're humming again. Cassidy flipped a pancake and smirked. Means I haven't burned them. I've never seen someone dance while making batter. I've never seen someone put a stock report on the kitchen island while eating pancakes. He held up a hand. Fair. She turned to him, holding out the spatula like a mic. Say it. Say, I'm the domestic goddess of this home. He stepped forward, grinning. You're the domestic chaos of this home. She gasped dramatically. I'll take it. He walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. I like this, he said softly. All of it. She melted into him for a moment before gently elbowing him away. You're only saying that because you don't have to clean the batter off the ceiling later. I'm saying that because you turned this place into a home. Cassidy blinked, then smiled, and flipped another pancake. Later, puppy chaos. I can explain, Cassidy shouted, dodging a flying sock. I left you alone for 20 minutes, Seungjae cried, standing at the edge of the living room, frozen in horror as a tiny brown furball raced past him, dragging a pair of his designer boxers like a trophy. Cassidy held up her phone with a guilty smile. It was a rescue situation. Another bark rang out. Borie's. The new puppy. A wiggly rescue mutt with floppy ears and a crooked tail they hadn't even named yet. Spun around, yipped at Borie, and lunged for the couch pillow. Cassidy yelped. No, not the embroidered one. That's Psalm 91. Too late. Pillow guts flew into the air like snow. Seungjae's jaw dropped. He's a demon, He's a baby. They both lunged to stop the carnage, ending up in a tangle on the floor, laughing breathlessly as the puppies circled them in victory. You're lucky I love you, Seungjae muttered, arms tangled with hers, face inches away. Cassidy grinned. I know. Night. Living room. The dogs were finally asleep. One curled under Seungjae's arm, the other sprawled across Cassidy's feet like a protective dragon. A candle flickered on the coffee table. Rain tapped softly at the windows. Cassidy sipped tea and leaned her head on Seungjae's shoulder. His arm tightened around her without needing to ask. After a long silence, he spoke. Quiet, steady. I used to come home and think silence meant peace. Cassidy looked up at him. But it wasn't peace, he continued. It was just loneliness dressed up as control. All the quiet, all the order. It only ever reminded me of what I didn't have. She reached for his hand. Now I come home, he whispered, and it's mess and music and two badly trained dogs and pillows that don't match. And somehow, he turned to look at her fully. I've never been more at peace. She smiled, but something flickered in her eyes. Something vulnerable. You sure? It's not just newness? Not just rebellion against your family's legacy? Seungjae held her gaze. No, he said. It's you. Then he reached out, gently tucked a curl behind her ear, and whispered, You're my home now. Cassidy stilled. Her breath caught. Her eyes searched his for any hint of uncertainty, but found none. She didn't speak, just leaned in, pressing her lips to his. Slow, grateful, certain. In that moment, she knew. The penthouse didn't need more throw pillows. It just needed them. Cassidy woke the next morning to the scent of coffee and pancakes. Seungjae stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, humming to himself. She laughed. Are you making breakfast? He looked up, completely serious. Today's the day, he said. The day for what? He handed her a coffee and kissed her cheek. To name the puppy. And to ask you something that'll change everything. Seoul, National Venture Innovation Forum. Live broadcast. The stage was sleek, modern, and humming with attention. 1,000 seats filled the hall. Global investors, media titans, and Korea's elite had gathered to witness the final round of a high-stakes innovation competition between the top CEOs in Asia. It was also where Seungjae was scheduled to present the restructuring model that had saved Yoon Group from collapse. But that wasn't why the cameras were humming. It was the rumors, the scandal, the comeback, the woman. Cassidy stood at the back of the room with Borie's leash looped discreetly around her wrist. Seungjae insisted she didn't have to come. She came anyway. She wore black, bold, beautiful, hair in soft curls, no apology in her posture. She hadn't come to be tolerated. She came to be seen. The presenter stepped aside. The room fell quiet. Seungjae walked onto the stage. No paper, no notes, just truth. On stage, he looked calm, but Cassidy knew his nervous tick, thumb brushing the inside of his wrist. It was there. He paused at the mic, looked out at the faces that once watched him fall. Then he smiled. I came here to talk about legacy, about innovation, about rebuilding. He scanned the crowd, then looked directly into the cameras. But I'm going to start with something more important than profit margins and market share. This, he gestured behind him as Cassidy blinked, is Cassidy James. A hush. She is not a publicity stunt. She is not a crisis cover-up. She is not a phase. He looked down, then back up, eyes blazing. She is not my mistake. Cassidy's breath caught. She is my partner, my joy, my peace, my equal. Gasps, whispers. Cameras clicked like thunder. And if standing beside her cost me investors, connections, or even my family, Then so be it, because I'd rather walk into my future with someone who sees me as a man, not just a legacy. He stepped back, still calm, still proud. The crowd, divided. But the press, eating it up. The board, silent. His mother watching live, speechless. Cassidy, she smiled. Not small, not shy, but full. A woman seen, chosen, loved, and not just behind closed doors. 3 months later, the park walks Borie, regal as ever, leads the way until the second puppy, officially named Mochi, pounces and turns the walk into utter chaos. Cassidy and Seungjae both end up tangled in the leashes, laughing breathlessly on the grass. "Remind me why we got two," Seungjae groans. "Because one was emotionally manipulative and the other has no boundaries," Cassidy says, kissing his cheek. "Like us." Netflix nights, popcorn bowls, pajamas. Cassidy snuggled against Seungjae's chest while he yells at a plot twist. "You knew the villain was her father. I called it in episode 3. You said it was her ex." "I was warming up." Cassidy kisses his neck. "You're so cute when you're wrong." Sketchbook secrets. Late one night. While Cassidy reads, Seungjae sketches quietly in a leather notebook. A ring, no flash, no diamond avalanche. Just a delicate gold band, subtly shaped like an infinity knot. He glances up, sees her curled on the couch, and smiles softly. Not yet, he thinks, but soon. Bedside whispers. Cassidy curls into him as rain taps the windows. Borie hogs half the bed. Mochi snores upside down. She traces lazy circles on Seungjae's chest. "You know," she murmurs, "I never really left." He hums sleepily. She lifts her head, kisses his jaw. "You're my home now." Morning sun floods the penthouse. Cassidy laughs as Borie yanks one pillow off the couch while Mochi bounds after a squeaky toy. Seungjae chases after them, slipping on a rug and grabbing Cassidy's waist for balance. They tumble into each other, laughing, alive, in love, messy, real, and home. Borie flops dramatically between them like royalty. Mochi bounces across the floor. Cassidy presses her forehead to Seungjae's. He whispers, "Forever?" She smiles. "Forever." The end.